Dear friends, welcome to Theosophical Insights. We continue our discussion with Linda Oliveira, exploring the ancient wisdom and the practice of Theosophy in our daily lives in this second part of our interview. Please enjoy this episode. Yes, it's very, very important, this experience of deep reflection about life and all the important truths and being mindful at the moment. Yes, and also meditation, of course. And also you often emphasize the importance of actively living the Theosophical teachings so that the divine wisdom can transform us. Would you please share more about this process of self-transformation? What is it and how does it work, and how was your experience with it?
At the end of the day, I think there's a mystery about it, really. There's some kind of inner alchemical process that occurs. And I think for someone who's trying to practice a particular kind of living, and Theosophy is very much synonymous with altruism. HPV made this very clear. If one practices altruistic living, interesting things can happen. And if one doesn't resist it and feel resentful because of needing to do something that needs to be done for somebody else or something like that, there can be these moments of perhaps quiet satisfaction, of some fulfillment when one has done this, hopefully without wanting anything in return. There's this term nishkama karma, this kind of selfless karma, acting in a selfless way, which is a high ideal, quite wonderful. I mentioned before how in my life this balance between meditation and study and service has played a big role for a very long time. And I think it creates a point of balance, really. I think it makes a lot of sense because all we have to do is look around on the social media and the news and the world and everything else, and we have all these bites of information coming towards us all the time. All sorts of distractions, all sorts of things are happening. But if we can learn to be more centered in ourselves and more grounded, then even without realizing it, we might come to a point that that there is a realization later on that there has been some change which has been effective in some way, and that it's been beneficial, and that we may be more patient, more accepting of others, less judgmental, less torn here and there by all sorts of things, because it is a kind of chaotic world, and so many distractions are there all the time, and I think we need to choose what we're going to allow ourselves to engage with. There are many worthwhile things. I'm not saying that there are not, but we also need to come to a point of real centeredness. Some have mentioned the term a still point within, from which all sorts of things are possible. If there's that stillness, then maybe that very real connection with our inner nature, which has its own energy, which can be brought through to all of the things that we do.
Thank you. I think it's both simple and beautiful how Theosophy can be equated to altruistic living altruistically. And the paradox, once again, a paradox, is that it's it sounds simple, but it's the hardest thing to do because we're all so enmeshed with our personality and our daily hustle, the roles that we have to play. And therefore, I think simply trying to be more altruistic and more selfless can make us can transform us in small ways, and of course gradually more intentional altruism can affect a greater transformation, because that's the kind of going against what the way that we habitually operate.
Yes, I'm also thinking that if one takes into account the teaching of reincarnation, for one who finds this a logical teaching, and I find it supremely logical, then we are, by becoming altruistic, there's a sense in which we're probably trying to change the conditioning of many, many lifetimes. And that's not done automatically and quickly. It does take work, but it does repay that work as well. For me, there's been a certain lifestyle associated with that altruism as well. So I was a vegetarian for, I was brought up a vegetarian. About 8 years ago, I decided to become a vegan for a number of reasons, but I'm very happy with that decision, and that sits well with me. Don't drink or smoke or take non-medicinal drugs, that sort of thing too. So to me, that's part of, if you like, altruism towards myself, because it's trying to look after as best as possible the physical and the subtler bodies through a certain lifestyle. And that can be in its own way quite transformative also, because it renders the vehicles more sensitive generally to the inner nature.
Yeah, and in a way, it requires us to go beyond our lower nature's desires, right? Which can be hard at times, but it's kind of like how you are as a parent or a caregiver for a child. You have to both be loving and strict in order to master the lower body, or at least to kind of center ourselves in the eternal being instead of the transcendent, the temporal nature.
It's very easy to be always soft and allowing everything to happen, and maybe also easy to be always strict and forbidding, but to combine this harmoniously, that's some kind of evidence and way of really developing, I think.
I think there's a way of being firm without being aggressive.
Yes.
Yeah. And how would you do it? How have you done it? Like be it with yourself or with your children. When do you know you might have to, because sometimes we read that, oh, we need to allow ourselves to experience something and not suppress it, but sometimes we need to let go. And how do you know when to do what?
I think each situation is different, and I think we need to allow our intuition to come to bear. Sometimes there's something really obvious. For example, a child might be playing and in danger, and of course you need to very quickly try to reverse that situation of danger. But in other respects, I think it's more of an intuitive feeling. So, and I don't think there's any one equation or recipe for that. I think we need to use our own best intuitions.
Yeah, and personally, I believe that when you act through love and selflessness, then usually the result is a good one, or the action is a good one.
Absolutely, yes.
What is done for love is done well, as the saying goes. Yes. We already mentioned altruism today and how it is essential for Theosophy, and in Theosophy, and in many ways it is Theosophy. So can we speak a little about selflessness? You mentioned that it is like the key to spiritual progress. So how do we practice it? How we do live it in our life?
It's difficult because I think it was Professor Ravi Ravindra who once said, the truth is we are obsessed with ourselves. And we are our own point of reference. Everything is in relation to me, everything else that happens. And again, it's this reversal of lifetimes of growing this self. This self loves to grow itself even further in different ways. If we watch it, we can see that happening. So I think one way of doing that is to find within the whole corpus of theosophical literature some inspirational teachings which maybe you can meditate on or work with to take you out of your more self-centered pursuits. For example, there's a lovely little book on daily meditations, which was put together by Catherine Beachy, the fifth international president of the Theosophical Society, Brother Sri Ram, had some condensed thoughts of his on different subjects put together in Thoughts for Aspirants. Wonderfully inspiring, wonderful to meditate on, because we need to start changing, if you like, the fabric of our inner vehicles. They function in a certain way, but the more, for example, that we put into the mind, which can replace matter that's already there, the better. Because, you know, when you've got a bucket of water and you add some coloured drops, then bit by bit you're going to change the quality of that water. And I think it's a little bit like that with us as well. It needs that regular work on ourselves. So find some inspirational teachings. The Voice of the Silence is a wonderful little book. Light on the Path, and At the Feet of the Master, books like this. But find something for yourself that you seem to resonate with. And again, be attentive to what's happening at certain times. Another piece of advice was given by someone quite a few years ago. He said, if you find yourself thinking a negative thought, which is almost inevitably selfish, he said, work out some symbol which is meaningful for you, which does not cause strong emotions, but evokes a sense of the highest within you. And when you think such a thought, replace it with that symbol. And that's one way that one can begin to make the mind a little more self-centered. We need to also learn to observe others around us and the world around us more, because a lot of what we do might be associated with just managing from day to day and with all the the business of living. But we need to develop this quality of looking outside ourselves, just watching others, which is quite extraordinary. I think also the challenge is really from the point of view of one who is really inclined towards the idea of the spiritual path, also to try to make one's personality more and more a mere instrument of the inner nature, so that it can reflect some of the highest qualities like compassion and wisdom and things like that. But it requires work. It can require meditation, self-awareness, deeper study, a great deal of attention to how we live. But it can be quite a wonderful thing because it can be very releasing in a way. There is this sense, as I mentioned before, of sometimes a great satisfaction when we do something for somebody else. And we don't necessarily do it for that reason, but afterwards we feel it was the right thing to do. It was our dharma at that time, you know. So that is part of that process too.
It's wonderful. And this source of satisfaction is inexhaustible. We can have as much of it as we want, basically, right? There is no end to it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think the challenge is especially hard for young people these days because of social media, and social media reinforces comparison and going after material success and satisfactions. Yeah, so I think the young people these days have it harder. But yeah, what's your advice?
It's a very difficult time, yes. And I know there's a lot of mental unwellness in younger people these days as well. And it's a balancing act, really, because in Indian philosophy, it is taught that we are in Kali Yuga, which is an immensely long age of something like 432,000 years. And Kali Yuga, a couple of the hallmarks of it are that it's a deeply materialistic age, and that egoism is a very strong element of it as well. So we see this playing out in narcissism as well. There are different aspects to it. Now, materialism is an interesting thing because we have to be able to survive in the material world. So we do need to be able to provide for ourselves, to function within that. But I think what we need to try to figure out is how far we want to actually engage in it. Because there's so much there with perhaps an atmosphere of ambition around many people in different ways. And we have to decide for ourselves what is enough. What is something which is going to be of use, because there's so much that impinges on us all the time. And as you say, with the social media, there's this, it causes a lot of discomfort among people who feel they're not measuring up to this apparently perfect life or image that someone else is portraying. So self-image becomes of enormous importance as well. So again, I think we just need to try and use our common sense and work out what seems to be appropriate and what does not. Acknowledge that we have to live and function in a materialistic world, but determine how far we're going to engage in it and be drawn in by it so much that it might overtake our spiritual leanings, because there's always this polarity between the spiritual and the material. And the human mind is an extraordinary thing, really, because it's like a pivot. It can pivot towards the material and needs to every day to function. But it equally, if we are spiritually aware and engaging in spiritual practices, it can pivot quite easily towards the spiritual when we're not otherwise engaged too. So there is this ongoing challenge.
Thank you. That was so beautifully said, and I can see the duality of the mind on a daily basis of it kind of gravitate pulled from two sides, and so what's our conscience, or the side of us that is the part of the side that is pulling the mind upward towards the higher self. As it gets stronger, the lower self also pulls the mind even more. So I feel like there is this even stronger tug of war. And of course, selflessness tends towards the higher. So how could you share how we can in a way use the mind to move beyond the mind?
By training it to be quiet. I think that's one of the most important things. The mind is incredibly active. It's this whole medium of manas, the mind principle. And its natural activity is thought, and thoughts arise and come and go on a very regular basis. But it is only when the mind is quiet and therefore more receptive that it can be more open to the divine. Otherwise, it might miss something in the midst of all the other things. And to facilitate that, I always think that it's important to try to spend some time in nature, in the natural world. That can help a great deal. Perhaps even when the mind is refusing to settle, turning to something in the natural world can be a kind of mental therapy in a good way.
Oh yes, and so the ocean in Adyar is like an important part of the experience. We don't have the ocean in the place where I live, or very, very far away. I have to travel. So I feel like something in me like straightens out. Just one time, half an hour there, and I feel the inner change, like more peaceful, more grounded. Very interesting. How
Remarkable, isn't
strong
it?
the influence. Yes.
And if one lives in a busy city in an apartment or something like that, I think parks have a very important function. For example,
Yeah.
you spend some time in a park, it just it has its own energy. It's different. It's a way of kind of resetting, if you like.
Yes. And forests are full of life. We have
Oh,
many
yes.
parks and forests here, so it's interesting to see how this feeling of vibrant vitality is completely present in the forest where there are no people, and
Yes.
in the big crowded city is somehow absent. And we talked about this, as Clover says, like dual mind that pulls us in different directions. And it can lead us into the next question of half-heartedness, because in one of your articles you mentioned this very interesting idea of half-heartedness, like it is a great impediment to spiritual progress. So could you explain what that is and how to overcome it?
I suppose the term spiritual progress needs to be used carefully because it may imply a sense of spiritual competition with others, even to some people, which the spiritual path itself most certainly is not. it's not progress as we know it in this world. It's a different kind of thing. It's not like in this world the accumulation of credentials and wealth might be very important as an indicator of progress to many people. But on the contrary, the personal self needs to become, I guess, more subdued. Its ascendancy needs to diminish, so that if this spiritual opening up is going to occur. And regarding half-heartedness, I think quite a few people may come across, for example, theosophical teachings and dip their toe in the water, as it were, but they're not really interested in going further because there's the seriousness of purpose is perhaps not there, the intensity is not there, the dissatisfaction with life as it is not strong enough to pull them in that direction. And at the end of the day, other things may take priority and be more important rather than things which would assist in some kind of daily disciplines of a spiritual nature. And one of the great teachers behind the Theosophical Society said that sacrifice, rather selfishness, and the want of self-sacrifice are the greatest impediments on the path to adeptship. And want of self-sacrifice means not being willing to perhaps give up certain things in order to be more serious about it. And I think in terms of how does one overcome half-heartedness, well, I think that requires a decision not to be half-hearted, to learn not to be distracted by other things to the exclusion of that which pertains to a more spiritual life. And I think that a regular daily routine can help enormously. For example, at the beginning of the day, to determine to dedicate that day, maybe to service of others, or some quality which is of a more spiritual nature. Take some time each day to study worthwhile things, even if you don't have very much time. Read one paragraph and then dwell upon it, It doesn't have to be an enormous amount of study, but something that can take you inwards. For many people, regular meditation can be most beneficial in that regard. I think look out for opportunities to help. Try to be aware of others. And also at the end of the day, become collected, perhaps review the day and anything of note and what you might have learned from these things. I think regularity in practice, if one's endeavouring to lead a spiritual life, is incredibly important. So I think in terms of half-heartedness, make a decision not to be, and then put some things into place which will help to bring that about.
For me, half-heartedness is something that's in a way that the way that I go about doing things in the past, I lack discipline and consistency of routine and everything. But I'm slowly working towards that and dedicating time for spiritual practice every day and dedicating myself to the divine and to others instead of just be preoccupied with my own self-interest. I think that's incredibly liberating because I can see the changes within myself, and I feel like I really like what you said about spiritual progress not being progress in the conventional sense, because it is not linear. It is not linear like what we usually see in the world as progress. So over time, I think the intention that we put into, or at least speaking for myself, the intention that I put into sacrificing the lower self for the higher, and I see the transformation slowly, and it's something that cannot be put into words or cannot be measured. That's very beautiful. Thank you for
And
sharing.
it doesn't have to be an onerous process. It can become a most enjoyable thing, and it doesn't mean that one cannot have some fun as well.
Yeah.
It's just a something that can help to give a certain structure within which one lives one's life.
Yeah, and like you said, if you love something, it just becomes every moment becomes a meditation. And it becomes easier to just settle into the routine in a way. Um, and yeah, it can be full of joy instead of instead of mechanical, like the way we usually think of routines. So to move on, let's talk about the esoteric school of the TS. Could you illuminate the subject for us? What's its purpose? What's its origin? And so on.
Well, it was started in 1888 by Madame Blavatsky. And the reason that it was started is because at that time, after 7 or so years of existence, the Theosophical Society, according to her spiritual teachers, I think they used the term, was an abject failure when it came to brotherhood. The TS tends to attract some very strong-minded individuals, and this can sometimes, perhaps not uncommonly, bring out some very real differences between people. At that time, brotherhood was very much lacking, and the ES was formed with the aim of trying to help restore brotherhood in the TS more so that it would last longer. I think they were afraid it was really going to fail completely, that experimental Theosophical Society. And also as a school of preparation for Raj Yoga, which is essentially a more comprehensive approach to yoga, which centers on a transformed mind. The ES is constitutionally independent from the Theosophical Society, but it consists of members of the society who in turn support the TS. And it's a private body, so it's not a secret one. There's a letter from the international president which goes to new members of the society, which has a postscript mentioning the esoteric school. So that mention is there. Members of the TS, of course, vary a very great deal in terms of their personal interests and whether they want to endeavour to put Theosophy into practice in different ways. And the ES is simply a group of members of the Theosophical Society who have decided to live in a certain way, who actively support the society, and who simply made a choice to follow this pathway in terms of endeavouring to make Theosophy a living reality in their life. So requires a couple of years of active membership of the society and a particular lifestyle, which is required by the school: vegetarian, not drinking, not smoking, not taking recreational drugs. Those are a few of the things. So that's it in a nutshell, I suppose. So the ES, I think it's fair to say, definitely forms part of the heart of the Theosophical Society. There's an inspiration there for many of its members around the world, and I think that kind of inspiration is brought into their theosophical work as well.
So it feels like it is a place for those who are committed to living Theosophy in their lives and doing it together as a collective.
Yes, that's the thing. I think quite a few members of the school find that it's beneficial to actually be in the company of other serious students in the school itself. And so it's really a school which has helped to, I think, strengthen the spiritual life of the TS itself quietly, just because its individual members participate in different ways in the TS itself. It has an emphasis on self-inquiry, self-reliance, and on sacred service. And meditation, study, and service, again, are important in that kind of life. And it really does point to the possibility of change in the human being also through this transformation of the mind, which is not an easy thing, but can really change a person quite significantly, even small transformations of the mind.
I think it is important to be part of a group if you're serious and committed to living Theosophy. It is important to be part of a group of like-minded individuals, because the power of a group is so much greater than just one person.
Absolutely.
Yes, and we are pulled towards materialistic pole of existence by so many other groups and so many other collectives we come into contact with. So it's very good to have some counterbalance that goes us up in a way.
So our closing question, let's go to our closing question. From your perspective, what's the future of the TS and the WFYT? What's your message for all young Theosophists?
Okay. I think the main function of the TS is its first and primary object, to form a nucleus of the universal brotherhood of humanity. And that is a work in progress within the society as well. That need is probably greater than ever in terms of humanity at large now. And we need to find meaningful and effective ways of getting that message across in this ocean of information. So I think it's really important that the society continues to perhaps develop its online presence, and that it can become a kind of a haven for those who come within its doors, a haven for seekers of truth, a haven for people who perhaps understand that the world at large has a certain unsatisfactoriness about it, and it can be a place which is welcoming and open-minded as well. I think it's very important that we don't fall into dogmatism, so that when we inquire or consider subjects at meetings or anything else, there is an open mind, and even if we disagree with someone else, to allow somebody else to fully to have that right of a different point of view. I think also the Theosophical Society in the future, I think it's got a very real spiritual role in the world on inner planes, which can't be quantified, but certain ideas have percolated out into mainstream society, like karma and dharma, reincarnation, things like that. And it was the Theosophical Society, by and large, which really brought these things to the attention of the world from Eastern teachings way back when it was formed. So a lot of these ideas have percolated into mainstream society, but what we really need more than anything in the world is more of a sense of unity and this real brotherhood and sisterhood between human beings. I think that the TS has a really important role in that regard. The young Theosophists, well, the future of the Theosophical Society is in the hands of the next generation of Theosophists. The YTs are incredibly important, and great credit to Mr. Tim Boyd for encouraging young Theosophists to become more of a cohesive group. And I think that if it can also really center itself around core principles of Theosophy, and become, as far as possible, a unified and cohesive body, then that would be a wonderful thing. Perhaps in the YTs, it's similar to the TS at large. There may be some individuals with very strong opinions. The challenge is to find a way of working together and finding a common ground that is considered to be particularly important, and to work with that. And I think if the young Theosophists can be a harmonized and unified group, then that augurs very well for the Theosophical Society in the future as well. But also as individuals, if young Theosophists can start to understand more and more what the Theosophical Society is, what its purpose is, understand more about the teachings, but also reflect on them as much as possible and endeavour to put them into daily life. The individuals in the YTs help to strengthen that body enormously as well. And then there's find the richness and find the joy which is in the ocean of Theosophical teachings. There's a whole ocean of teachings there, but find what really speaks to you, what inspires you, and let that be your guide, really, because as life goes on, particularly if you remain in the TS as well, at some point somebody's going to let you down. That's what happens. But when we're more solidly grounded in what Theosophy truly is and balanced in ourselves, that can take us a very, very long way. And I think it's a wonderful thing that the young Theosophists have been reformed in the way that it has. With modern technology, we've got this wonderful collapsing of distance. So here we have Svyat from Russia, right? And here we are in Australia. So it's fantastic. And this is a medium that can be used to very great advantage. So all the very best with all that you are doing moving forward.
Thank you. Yes, the feeling of family is amazing. That is formed so quickly and easily, it seems, among young members. Yeah. It's just remarkable.
Yeah, I think this feeling of family really comes from just recognizing that, like, everyone recognizing that the true self is beyond this personality. I feel like that's how it is for me. But of course, we're still a long way from unity. I think unity in any group, and especially in the TS, like you said, it does attract strong-minded individuals, and I think and that has its own purpose as well. I think it's just part of growing, really, that we're just all growing towards unity. There might be some pitfalls there. We might feel like we have moved backwards, but we're always moving forward.
Yes, this sort of thing is a work in progress. If you have a good core of devoted members as well, that can make a big difference.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Linda, for spending your Sunday with us. I know Sunday might be a family day for you. So that concludes this episode of Theosophical Insights. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Thank you. Yes, let's stick together and enjoy our theosophical journey of study, meditation, and service. This brings us to the end of our conversation, but certainly not the end of the journey. A huge thank you to our guests for sharing their depth of wisdom with us today. If you enjoyed this interview, be sure to check part 1 if you haven't already, and subscribe to our channels so you never miss an episode. Until next time, and let us keep seeking the light within.